Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing State of Wonder by Ann Patchett. I'll talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I'll be reading for next time. Ann Patchett is an author I've reviewed many different times on the channel. I reviewed Commonwealth, The Dutch House, and Bel Canto for the channel. I'll go ahead and leave those links below so you can check those out if you're interested. Ann Patchett's a famous American author. She's most known for a couple different things, one of them being the co-owner of a bookstore in Tennessee, as well as being something of a Luddite, but she's a fairly well-regarded American author, probably still best known for Bel Canto, but also for Commonwealth. This is the book that she wrote right before Commonwealth was published, State of Wonder, which is about a woman named Marina Singh, who is a doctor working at a pharmaceutical company. She is tasked with going down to investigate the disappearance of one of her colleagues who was sent down to check on the progress of a top secret research project that's going on in the jungles of Brazil. And she's sent down there to investigate about what happened and to discover what is going on with this project. So, did I like about this? Ann Patchett is just a very strong writer, sentence to sentence. It's clear in this book and every other book that I've read from her that she's very skilled in writing basically at that level of the sentence. There's some very funny laugh out loud moments in this book. There are some interesting side characters as well. There's probably 2 or 3 really evocative scenes. There's a scene of domesticity in the beginning of the book before the main character is sent down to Brazil that's really strong. The detail in that scene is really strong. The ability for Ann Patchett to give you really specific details to give you a sense of place, but also not drown you in detail, I think is really on display here. There's also a scene about 3/4 of the way through that is very tense, and it's kind of the crucible moment for the main character that's really great. And then the last scene in the book is also really, really strong. This is my 4th book of hers that I've read. I am a very an Ann Patchett fan by this point. I think I've read as many books of hers as anybody else I've reviewed for the channel. I think her now and Stephen King are tied with 4. And I enjoyed certain aspects of this book, but overall I was a little disappointed. I'm reminded of an old Alice Cooper quote when he hosted his radio show. I don't know if he still does, but he was coming off a Beatles song, and he goes, "I've liked every song by the Beatles growing up except for one, and that was All You Need Is Love." And I listened to it and I thought to myself, yeah, so what? To paraphrase that quote. I think that was my problem with this book. I think there are a lot of pieces that are interesting, but the book never really gelled as a whole for me. There are long stretches of I'd say the middle to about the 3/4 of the way through that I was really bored. I think at the heart of the books of hers that I liked, and this is probably my least favorite of her stuff that I've read, there's a really strong emotional core. In The Dutch House, you have the relationship between the brother and the sister. In Commonwealth, you really have the entire relationship between the children versus the parents in an interesting way. In Bel Canto, you have a really strong love story, a romantic story at the core of that. For this book, the main character is something of an enigma. It's not quite clear what exactly she wants. And so because that kind of changes scene to scene, I felt myself not caring or not identifying with her. There are parts of the book that she acts very heroically, but there are other parts where she's really essentially led by the nose by other characters. She's manipulated throughout the book. And I think because that character, I didn't know what she wanted, and I felt that she was too easily manipulated for someone in her position. It left a bad taste in my mouth. There's also some unlikable characters in the book. And then I think the other part of it that I had a hard time with, there's a lot of things, not a lot of things. There are a couple points in the book where coincidences are very clear to the reader, and you basically have to accept those coincidences and move forward. And if you don't, you're going to have a hard time with the book. I think that for me, there's a couple of conveniences or coincidences, depending on how you're phrasing that were difficult for me to get over. I'm trying to remain vague again because I want to stay spoiler free for the video, but they complicated the relationships in a way that I didn't feel felt organic. That felt a little forced. I think too. I get the sense that Ann Patchett is trying to say something about possibly motherhood or hero worship in the book. Those are probably the two biggest themes in the book, but I don't know. Those two themes didn't ring true for me due to characters' actions didn't really align with those themes, if that makes sense. Again, trying to remain vague. So I on record, I had I had points of Commonwealth where I had to sit back and scratch my head and say, I wonder what she's saying here, what this means. And I've enjoyed those because I enjoyed that book and was willing to take the time to sit and think and stay with the book. And because I cared about those characters and I thought it was an interesting premise. For this book, I think there was something missing from it. I think that maybe there are parts of the book where there's no, for lack of a better term, time clock. So there's nothing really pushing the book forward. There's no real deadline. So there are just kind of languid passages in this environment. The stakes of it aren't really clear at first. I think they become slightly clearer as the book goes along. But even then, it's a little head scratchy as to the end goal for certain characters. There are, at certain points, a lot of characters to keep track of who almost blend together. They're kind of difficult to keep track of. So I had, from a technical level, from the writing level, sentence to sentence, I think is very strong. And I think that Ann Patchett is a skilled enough writer to get away with things. And I just wish the book had felt more cohesive, and I wish that the main character I identified with and cared about a little bit more. I don't think it's that she's a bad character in the sense of being a bad person. There are certain things that she does that are very heroic. Like I said, I just felt there was a lack of agency that on one level I understood, but on another level it made the book a little bit tiresome at times. So that's my review of State of Wonder by Ann Patchett. And next time I will be reading The Mating Mind by Jeffrey Miller. Until next time, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll leave those links to the other Ann Patchett videos below, as well as my link to my Twitter account. Until next time, bye.